It's extremely difficult to kind of discuss the conference proceedings, but for the sake of the VIPs who are present now, I may just say that the inaugural program was by the Minister of State for Education, who talked about the National Education Policy or the New Education Policy 2020, following which the Minister of State for External Affairs gave us a video message. I thought Duncan did an extremely good job of explaining the Times Higher Education rankings and the 4 issues which are important. He mentioned teaching, he mentioned research, he mentioned outreach. I would request the students to take note of it because those things are important for the reputation of the university. The first panel was extremely interesting, I thought, chaired by Duncan himself. And I thought there was a nice, what shall I say, interaction between the private sector and the academic community. That was very interesting because both of them agreed that they are working in silos, and that was a very great revelation for me. Both the academicians and the private sector felt that they were working in silos and that there could be more interaction, cross-fertilization of ideas. A question was thrown to all of you about which job you would prefer if the salary was same, and I thought your response was a disingenuous one. I leave you to Google the word disingenuous anyway. So that was my honest view on that, but because I think I also believe the point which was subsequently made, which is that green jobs are also going to be better paying jobs. So I don't think that is an issue, frankly. I think the question is whether the country can get its act together and we can all move towards a low carbon pathway to development. Then there was a talk by Duncan, as I said, on the rankings themselves. We had a second panel which I thought was fascinating, thanks in no small measure to my colleague, Professor Sudarshan. I thank you very much. I thought that was an interesting debate we had on whether there should be inter se priority among the 17 or 16 SDGs. And there was no definitive answer because you can have different views on the subject. And certainly some would say there is no point in discussing poverty and per capita income if there is no planet at all. So in that sense, planet assumes overriding importance, but there are other issues which are existential for India. And I thought the fact that India is a long way really from achieving goals like no poverty, no hunger, gender parity. Everyone will agree that we are some distance away from achieving those goals. So that's I think, extremely important. So it's been a fascinating day-long meeting that we have had. At some point, kindly look up the website, which is not yet been established, of the Jindal Global G20 Center. It will be up and running. We are trying very hard to get it up and running because you will then find a lot of the record of discussions and other things on the website. We thought that's the easiest way to reach out to you instead of wasting more paper and distributing it to you, because that will also lead to other issues like environmental degradation and so on. So kindly look at the website. So with those words, I wanted to thank my colleague, Professor Padmanabhan, because it's thanks to him, Paddy actually, who's been responsible for organizing this conference. Thank you very much, sir, for the trouble you have taken, because I think in the end it turned out to be a very fruitful conference. You will agree that we were able to discuss a whole gamut of subjects with regard to SDGs. There was this interesting point, and that'll be the last point I'll make, which is beyond SDGs. I thought the general consensus was that in 2030, at least parts of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia will not achieve all the SDGs by 2030. So there is no, it makes little sense to talk about goals themselves, but it was generally agreed that the goals will remain the same, the targets which are under the goals, which are about 160 odd, those can be tweaked, and they should be tweaked. I myself am of the view that actually there should be a special SDG summit just for sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, if necessary, 2 different summits, one for Africa and one for South Asia, because the problems may be a little different, because I think it is extremely important that the world focuses on these 2 regions which have millions and millions of people who are going to continue to be in poverty and underdevelopment. So with those words, I just wanted to thank the students in particular for this amazing ability and resilience to stay the whole day. and to listen to all of us. So thank you very much, and thank you for your participation as well. Once again, thanks, Paddy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request Professor Dr. C Raj Kumar, the founding Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University, to share the way forward.
All right. This morning I began by saying that the entire city of Delhi has been decorated and prepared for the G20, not the big one, but our own summit that we began this morning, the Universities Summit implementing SDGs and beyond. I have to say that we are beginning the valedictory session and we should end it up fast because Chandrayaan 3 is about to land in the moon and we can't make it wait for long. So the approximate time of landing is 6:04 p.m. So I have requested Dr. Virander Chauhan to allow us sufficient time so that we can all prepare for watching it live. Be that as it may, as Professor Mohan just gave a very short, important briefing about what we have done today, it's only a beginning in relation to what we intend to do more. First of all, I want to say that this summit that we have had today has had very interesting participation from almost 25 universities located in the National Capital Region of Delhi. We've had very wide presence of vice chancellors, deans, head of departments of various schools, as well as some of the professors who have been here since morning. I especially want to thank the faculty members and the students of the Jindal School of Environment and Sustainability who are present here. They got up at around 5:30 a.m. and got ready in Sonipat and have come to Delhi and have spent the whole day here. So I'm grateful to each one of them for their presence and participation in this summit. The Jindal Global Center for G20 Studies that we established at OP Jindal Global University some time ago, one of its mission was to continue the overall imagination and the work of G20 to go and work beyond India's presidency of G20. Most of the time what ends up happening is that these the hard work that ought to happen ends up becoming event-based, and its attention and its prominence is connected to certain important events and milestones. One example is the G20 presidency of India itself. We believe that the G20 as a group will continue to have a very significant influence and impact on addressing some of the big issues of our time, including the attempts and efforts to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. And so, as a part of our university's commitment to advancing the cause of G20 studies in all its forms and manifestations, we established the center, and it is headed by an extraordinary former Indian ambassador to France, a man who has had a very distinguished career negotiating on behalf of India, the General Agreement on Trade and Services in Geneva, but also has had a very distinguished career in diplomacy, who later joined us as a professor of diplomacy in the Jindal School of International Affairs, and now he's the dean and director of the center. Our goal is to galvanize a stronger level of intellectual consciousness towards advancing G20 studies, and to be able to host conferences, lectures, workshops, and seminars, but also to be able to create research opportunities for both students and faculty alike on various aspects of G20 studies. This and many such initiatives under the ambit of the Jindal Global Center for G20 Studies are part of this effort. I also want to mention that as a university, we are deeply conscious of our overall institutional commitment to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. As some of you know, 2 years ago, we produced the first and only report made by any university in the entire Asia-Pacific region on sustainable development. It was called the Sustainable Development Report of our university. What we essentially did, and students of the School of Environment and Sustainability should take a look at the report, is that we invited Terry and Mazar, which is an independent audit company, and a law firm, Trust Legal, to essentially look at the functioning of our own university, including our resources, our energy consumption, and all other things that we do on our campus, and benchmark it with the 17 SDGs. They produced a report, and the report actually was released by both the Indian Education Minister and the Environment Minister 2 years ago. And since then, we have been having what we call Sustainable Development Conclave and Sustainability Conclave in different cities in the country, including one in Benares, one in Lucknow, one in Bangalore, one in Chennai, and of course one in Delhi. And typically we invite many individuals in these cities. Now that was part of an effort to not just outreach, but also to build awareness among the wider sections of society, including civil society, think tanks, research institutions, non-governmental organizations, intergovernmental organizations, government agencies, about the need for advancing the cause of sustainable development goals. But we need to do more. And one effort in that regard is our effort to set up the Jindal School of Environment and Sustainability, launch a new program, an undergraduate program in sustainable development, which has its first cohort this year, but also to be able to engage in research and knowledge creation and advancing publications in a range of issues relating to sustainable development, which our faculty members are already doing. And that work is not only confined to the Jindal School of Environment and Sustainability. Our colleagues in the law school, in the business school, in the international affairs school, in the public policy school, in the liberal arts and humanities school, in the journalism school, in the art and architecture school, and other schools are pursuing that work, and we want to build on that work as well. Lastly, I want to say that the work relating to addressing the SDGs is not necessarily a state-led initiative. In fact, one of the remarkable things that the government of India has done, and sometimes people, at times people are cynical about these activities, and when you look around the country in the last, say, 7-8 months or so, there was so much of G20 logos and G20 based activities and G20 initiatives that were promoted. But if you go beyond the rhetoric of that G20 engagement, it was clearly the Honorable Prime Minister of India had a vision, and the vision was, how do we democratize and make the G20 conversations more accessible to ordinary people of India, in the sense that how can we involve and have both the participation and the engagement of people outside the government towards the activities, work and functions of G20. Now this was a very simple but an important question that I am sure he and other colleagues in the government had asked, and the outcome of that effort was to essentially go beyond the narrow confines of foreign policy discussions happening among a bunch of Indian Foreign Service officers, well-meaning ones I'm sure, but also with ministers and people who are engaged in the government, and most of India has no clue essentially as to what they are doing and what it is actually being done. But today, we are at a unique moment when the entire framework of addressing the big issues of our time are not only going to be done by the government. It is going to be done by many, many ordinary people, especially the young people of India. And to be able to connect to the young people of India, it is not enough if that work and that activity is led and entirely participated only by the government officials. That was the vision that has resulted in what we have seen in the last 9 months or so, where every airport you visit, every TV channel you watch, every railway station you visit, every plane you take, every type of organizations you visit, there was something, the level of curiosity. I come from a place called Kanyakumari, and the G20 logos are in Kanyakumari as well. They are just all over, and people are actually asking, it is also asking questions and improving their awareness surrounding G20. This is by no small measure having an impact on the interest that has been generated on a range of issues related to G20 itself. Now, this is where what we do in universities also become important. Many a time, there is a huge gap between the development of theory and the issues surrounding the world of practice and how they are disconnected with each other. The Sustainable Development Goals as a thematic framework has among the many issues that we end up doing in universities and the world of practice does, this is one such issue where we can work stronger towards bridging the gap between theory and practice. There are very few issues out there where this can be easily resolved, but in relation to SDGs, there is so much that what a university does, what faculty members and researchers do, what students and young leaders can do, and how it can overall help us in the fulfillment of SDGs. And that is why we need to have a more sharper and a more deeply engaged conversations and discussions and debates, seminars, conferences, workshops, policy papers, and reports and publications surrounding the Sustainable Development Goals. So I am personally very, very delighted that we have been able to convene this summit. As I said, this summit will be part of a continuum of many other initiatives that OP Jindal Global University will be doing, sometimes in collaboration with the Jindal School of Environment and Sustainability, sometimes with our policy school, sometimes with other organizations. I also want to take this moment to thank the Association of Indian Universities for their convening and joint collaboration in this initiative. Dr. Pankaj Mittal has been invited to meet with the Indian Defense Minister as we speak, and hence she is not able to join us, but she sends her regrets. She was here in the morning, and we are grateful to her for the participation and collaboration in this summit. I also want to express my deepest gratitude to the Times Higher Education, both Phil Beatty, who was present online, and Duncan Ross, who was here physically, for not only writing a report and releasing it today, but also to be able to provide leadership and initiative in the entire gamut of universities in relation to addressing the role of impact rankings in this. Many a time, the rankings organizations receive a lot of criticism for what they do. In this country also, they've gone through that criticism. People have said for many years, oh, they end up focusing on things that don't matter, and there is so little awareness for them to look at issues that really matter. And as an outcome of that criticism, in response to that criticism, Times Higher Education had come out with this impact rankings, where the usual benchmarks of assessment is not about what you assess, which is scopus, index publications, and citations, but to be able to look in a more nuanced manner as to what universities really do and how that will impact the future. So I am indeed grateful to them for this initiative, and thank you for collaborating. With those words, I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Virander S. Chauhan, former chairperson of the University Grants Commission, former chairperson of NAC, a distinguished professor of biotechnology, and also a Rhodes Scholar, and somebody who has had the longitudinal experience of looking at different types of higher education institutions in India, from liberal arts to humanities to social sciences to STEM, and the whole range of institutions has been part of his work and experience. I am grateful to him for accepting our invitation to deliver the Valedictory Address and to speak on a theme that I am personally very fond of, which is science for sustainability and society. Over to you, Dr. Chauhan.
Very happy to be here. Raj, I think you just gave a valedictory lecture, but I'm glad I came when I did, because Mohan and Sudarshan and everybody was having a very clever conversation. But I wish I hadn't come at the same time. I think they talked about very complex, very complicated issue with great facility. I don't have that facility. I'm going to try to stick to, for just next 20 minutes, something what the title says here, science, sustainability. And somebody asks a question, can technology solve the problems that we have? So some of the things that I'm going to say will be unrelated to each other, so they won't be in a sequence. So let me put forward this to you. This will be, let me get for the first what science is, what scientists do, and what scientists cannot do, or what scientists cannot solve. Science is very simply put is to understand how the nature function, period. You see things around you, you see a flower, why a flower is red. I want to find out why it is not black, why it is not green. I go about tools I have of observations, then I look at those tools and try to answer that question. I get infected by a virus or a bacteria. 100 years back, you could not tell me which virus, which bacteria I was infected with. The average life expectancy, this is the impact of science. And some people ask, can science solve the problems or not? In 1900, life expectancy on the planet was 36, 37 years. 100 years on, this is 73 years. As I speak with you, global life expectancy is 73. Huge impact of science. So science, this is what scientists do. But I'm going to mention 3 names to you, which will give you some historical perspective and see if I can put these things together, which is sustainability and society. The first name I'll take is somebody called James Desmond Bernal. I wonder if any one of you have come across this name. If not, if you're interested in science and the science in history, I think that's the person you want to look at. He becomes very relevant today because we talk about scientists can only do this, scientists can only do this. What about the policy makers? And I think, I wonder Sudarshan is still here or not. These things are hugely interconnected. You were rightly saying that you can't touch A without touching B. So that's what Desmond Bernal said. He was born in 1901, he died in 1971. I don't think anybody's written more about science, impact of science and policies than James Bernal. He's a crystallographer from Cambridge, went on to work with 3 Nobel Prize winners, Max Perutz, Dorothy Hodgkin, and William Bragg. These are the biggest name in structural biology. Scientists wanted to just know of things that they around them, what they look like. I think the whole century of 1900 to 2000 went into this fascinating phase of science, that what are things are. So crystallography, whether it's a DNA structure, or it's a protein structure, insulin structure, all these got Nobel Prize at different times. Why I mentioned Bernal? Bernal was, you could call him a Marxist if you like. He lived through 2 world wars, World War I, II. He saw how science immediately got serving for the purpose of war. There's no better quantitative study to my mind ever done on the impact of science than what Bernal did. He wrote a book called Social Function of Science and said, and I'll just get off Bernal now, you people can look up, the social function of science is only one, is to serve the society. So anything that a scientist does inherently is economic, political, cultural, has religious backing, so on. I don't have enough time to build this on. Maybe another time we can have a longer lecture on this, but that's what Bernal said. So Bernal would say that no science should be done until it has a political end. And Russians and Chinese, and even today, if you look at Bernal citations, you'll find a lot of Chinese work on what you people are doing. You'll find Bernal quoted many, many times. So Bernal would say to someone like me, Dr. Chauhan, you have no business to work on malaria, you work on this. Same time, while Bernal was saying that, they were discussing Michael Polanyi. The second name I want to take is Michael Polanyi. Michael was Hungarian, came to England, taught economics. He's a physical chemist, again a crystallographer. Everyone was a crystallographer at that time because you wanted to look at the structures. So very briefly, Michael Polanyi totally disagreed with Bernal, and these two were big voices, and said, science can be done best when scientists are left alone to do what they want to do. So the best science or best solution of science or technology was, for example, the LED or monoclonal antibodies or GPS didn't come because people were looking for them. You don't look out to go and look for ink and center lights will go. There's no bulb. When I grew up, we used bulb, which the heat would produce light. So these debates are recorded, and those of you who look at environment and social impact of science and policies should look at these too. Same time when Bernal was saying, and Bernal was very friendly with Russians at that time, so all policies of doing science in Russia and China, and I dare say even in India, Nehru's policy at that time to create CSIR-like structures were dominated by the ideas that the science has a state function which has to solve problems. The other name I want to take is a man called Lysenko. Trofim Lysenko is a Russian agriculture scientist, very big voice with Stalin. And this is what Michael Polanyi had said, that the positivism in science is a real toxic for any knowledge, real toxicity knowledge. It meant this: I think, or Sudarshan thinks, this is the way things should happen in science, and I know better than anyone. I'm very smart, so when I say everybody listens to me. So science can do this. It has happened in history of science. More than 3,000 Russian biologists were murdered or killed or went to jail in that time. And this all is happening at the same time. They were born roughly in the same period. So these three names become very important, especially when you talk about sustainability. So I'm just going to get these three out of the way because these people have done fundamental work to understand how the policies can be made, how the policies are not made, what is the quantitative effect of this much money should be gone. This is all documented. I move to the next point that I want to make. You look around yourselves. It's been said here, environment or climate is the major problem. And can science provide a sustainable solution to this? Answer seems to be no. Right now, if you see, there are more than 1,000 wildfires in Western Canada, some of them almost reaching to Washington state. You have had floods in Pakistan last year. How many people died? We don't know. You have had floods up here. As I was coming here, 18 bodies, charred bodies were found on Turkish border. And this is again wildfire in Greece, Portugal, highest temperature. So if you were to have a bunch of scientists here, can you find a solution? And I personally think scientists will just raise their hands. I probably can't find a solution. You can't have artificial rain as a solution. So what has happened? So science actually said, that's what I'm trying to emphasize, scientists can only do this much, which is to find out how nature works. Where does the virus come from? What does the virus look like? Can we make a vaccine? Or then everything is taken over by policy makers or decision makers. And as Sudarshan was, and Mohan was making a point, then it's the behavior of the political systems that you have. And I'll take two more examples here. Let me just finish the point I'm making about what science can do. So science will go out. For example, I'll give you spectacular science movement. Wuhan virus gets declared on 31st of December. By 10th of January, you had the full sequence on the internet. In 10 days, you had the whole sequence of virus. So anybody had access. So this is somebody says, great admirer of internet. All of us at the click of a mouse knew the sequence of the virus. In 10 days, we knew how to do the diagnosis. And of course, the vaccine story, that is power of science. But tell you what science cannot do. We still till today do not know where the virus has come from. That's where the politics comes in. For 1.5 years, WHO teams could not enter a country where the virus grew from. So even as I speak with you, this is what scientists cannot provide. What scientists cannot provide is you can make an mRNA vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer, or or whatever. This is university become very important, and let me make that point in running because Raj talked about university's role. Is that more than 10 billion vaccines were produced, and Africa didn't have access to it. Simply didn't have it. We know that. There are countries in the West which had 10 times or 6 times more vaccine they would have ever needed, and many of them didn't use them. They just were thrown. So that part of sustainable on society impact, the science cannot handle. And this we know from the history of many ways. So accessing the fruits of science is an issue which has to be debated with whatever goals do they. And I personally say, and I'm old enough to say that I'm washed enough, I don't see any solution coming out of this. You can have Gates Foundation giving money, Gavi giving money, max money. Science could move very, very fast. Science did move very fast. And let me just say the role of university. All the 3 major vaccines that came up very, very quickly had a university lineage. Moderna was working with the NIH, Pfizer was working with T-Bionet in Germany, which came out from a university, and of course Oxford University produced the vaccine. Science can only go that far. Does science has owe anything to the society? And that's also in the title, with the social function of science. Scientists are not from outside the society. Scientists form a part of society. Is this an inquiry of scientists? I personally feel should be independent of any pressures. No matter, if you are independent of pressure, I think you will produce the best works. There's a danger of people doing the same thing or doing not very good, but the danger has to be looked separately. Science must be free to. What do you owe to the society? As we grew, see when oxygen was being discovered or magnetism was being discovered, or today James Webb telescope is creating pictures, I think that part of science is, for a lot of people, not even known. I don't know how many of you followed what James Webb Space Telescope does today. What it does is a spectacular work. In fact, those of you interested in astronomy must look at it. Does it have any impact with social relevance, sustainability, or society? I think you do it for yourself. Find out. But it's asking a fundamental question: where did we all come from? How many galaxies there are? How small, tiny, little speck bubble this Earth is? How insignificant in this large world we are? It just puts you into perspective. So please look up James Webb telescope, which is going around the sun, 1.5 million kilometers away from where we are, and so on and so forth. So as I said, it'll be disconnected. So accessing the fruits of science is something which I am deeply concerned about. For example, you have CAR T-cell therapy now. A lot of cancer patients in America and will have access to it. You have first gene therapy, which FDA has improved. This is what science can do, can bring it to society, can find solution. But how large part of the world simply will not be able to access it. So science, inquiry, results, and access becomes a serious problem. So here, again, I'll say to Mohan and to Sudarshans of this world, is I personally, where I stand as a scientist, I don't see any solutions coming out. So as I speak with you, something very important taking place in South Africa, and this is the BRICS conference, which now trying to figure out a bigger order. Does science care? Or does meetings care about science? Answer is yes. Because those decisions will become very, very important. Who accesses what, to what level. And access is something that we have seen. Take, for example, case of where solution exists. India has 27% of all tuberculosis cases. We know this for years. I know it from, I'm this old. There's a huge push from Indian government, including the Prime Minister initiative, that we should reduce it to manageable level, let's say to, of course, PM would have said eradicate it, because we have this, you have the drugs, you know how to look at TB, you can just screen the whole country, put your policy in place, and get rid of tuberculosis. 5 years on, the amount of TB is exactly where it was. So where do you find solution? Where is the sustenance of the society and science will come together? This is my personal opinion. I'm going to say something which is very personally, which I have observed. And this is, I think, our Prime Minister articulated in COPA 26 or 27, I forgot, I think it's COPA 26. Unless, and I firmly believe in this, unless the personal behaviors of people who inhabit this earth undergo a change, including all of you, young. If it doesn't happen at a personal level, panchayat level, then a nagar level, then at a state level, I personally don't think there's any solution to these problems. What do I mean by the personal solution? So if tuberculosis is a problem, can we create a model whereby society itself gets involved? Because solutions are there. It's not something which is needed to be solved. You have the solution. The same for diabetes or whatever. There are many, many solutions are there. If we personally don't, if I move from place A to B and I use a SUV that doesn't drive, and those who use large SUVs, please don't mind my saying it, doesn't run more than 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers to a gallon. I still drive a Maruti. Unless we actually get down to that level, we're not going to solve those problems. Then you can tell somebody else to solve problem. Some government policy should problem. So I'm just going back and I'm going to wind up. Science, spectacular power. I haven't even talked about CRISPR. You'll hear a lot about CRISPR. You're going to hear so much about AI and CRISPR that next 5 years will be taken over. So you can misuse CRISPR as much as you want, but you have a solution of producing huge amount of agriculture produce in much more intelligent manner. Possible, doable, probably will happen, but CRISPR will be misused. I'm sure all of you seen Oppenheimer recently, and there's one movement when Oppenheimer has understood the power of an atom and knows exactly that if you destroyed, if you broke down huge energy, and the President of America is saying, why are you so worried? You didn't drop the bomb. If you remember all those, I dropped the bomb. Your job was to produce this. So science would produce and will continue to produce, because scientists are curious, will continue curious, will find solution. Will those solutions be accessible, or will be used, or will be utilized by policymakers? Personally, I seriously doubt. I don't want to end my lecture on a negative note. Today is an amazing day, especially for India. I think in next 20-25 minutes, you may have something which put Indian science ahead of so many other sciences. I just hope all of you would agree. We pray that we actually land on moon. Who can argue what's the point of landing on moon? Anybody can say why, what will happen. I mean, you land in moon, go to Mars, go to, our problems are different. But I think these are different verticals. Going to moon is a scientific curiosity, technological advancement. What it be used for, I think the future will say. But right now, I'm absolutely breathless I just hope Chandrayaan 3 actually lands softly and has slightly better legs than I have and takes the impact of this. So I'm going to just wind this up by saying that science does have a social responsibility. But you can't tell science what to do. Science will progress best, as Michael Poliani said, when science is done for the sake of science. In fact, mRNA vaccine is not vaccine produced against COVID-19. mRNA vaccine came from the original came from how do bacteria defend themselves against viruses? That was the inquiry. Done in California, done in a university setting. When viruses attack bacteria, how do bacteria defend? They found there's a RNA, which is CRISPR. The next question is, can RNA be delivered inside a cell? So answer is no. When I was a graduate student, we'd say it's too fragile. It'll never get into cell and produce protein. But some people believe that it can. And rest is history. Today you will have cancer vaccine. And days not very far when you begin to have vaccines we've never heard of. HIV vaccine, malaria vaccine. And so science progress will be there. But so I finally say that accessing the results of science, making policies by countries which have exploited the rest of the world, incessant for all the time to come, will that change? Will that order change? I don't know. I hope it happens when I'm still alive. Future is in your hand. The tools will be there. Tools, I mean, I haven't even mentioned AI because that's a totally different word altogether. The tools will be there. Tools to solve problem will be there. But I've been finding that tools have been there for a very long time for very many things. Sudarshan said DDT removed all the malaria, cut the but malaria came back spectacularly in India. I mean, my very final comment I want to make: humans have to learn. They don't respect each other. We know that. You can see this. We always kill each other. We find better way of killing each other. As I speak with you, at least in 20 locations, humans are physically killing people. But that passing, everybody knows that. But humans don't respect what is the rest of the evolutionary world is. It doesn't respect insects. It doesn't respect viruses. It doesn't respect bacteria. Should we respect bacteria? I think we should respect all forms of sciences and should not think. And I think our end game with humans will be, if I were to say, is this our arrogance. Arrogance of the two-legged animal over huge diversity of life probably will see the end of us. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope next generation will learn that in this planet, the huge amount of bats have to live. Animals have to live. They all have to live. If you destroy their habitat, you will do it a danger. That's why you will have you'll have a virus like COVID-19. And there's absolutely no reason why you should not have a pandemic 5 years from now. You check from 1970 onwards, every 10 years we have a pandemic. Every 10 years. You have HIV, you have Zika, you had Ebola, you had SARS-1, SARS-2. Why would you not have SARS-3, SARS-4 if you cut all the Amazon because you want to live better or economy? So I think environment, climate, I personally think solutions are there. I think governments should take note. I think government will not take the note. And that's where the planet is in your hands. Really, we would move on. It's entirely in your hand. Read carefully. Force yourself into your governments, into policy maker, but more than government. I think this is a personal behavior of all of us. How much we consume, how much should we consume, how measure what the consumption levels will be, individual level, family level, your society level. That's the solution only, I think. Let's hope Chandrayaan-3 lands in next 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I invite Professor Padmanabha Ramanujam to deliver the vote of thanks.
So we are ending this conference, but let me just tell you a poster that I read when I took a walk with Raj at Rollins College. They put up a poster which said that scientists may want to clone a rhinoceros, but it could be humanities or the discipline of humanities which could say it's a bad idea. Right. I agree with you, sir. Science and technology may not have all the problems, and we can't search for solutions in science and technology. I think the talk and the lecture delivered by you was so engaging. I think we're going to go back and read all the authors that you have mentioned and the references that you have given. First of all, let me take this honor in thanking you, sir. Thank you so much for coming here, engaging us. I think we've come a full circle. We started with how universities can influence SDG. We thought, is there an argument beyond SDG? And we have come back to science. Is that a solution for SDG? We've come a full circle, and thanks to you and for your engaging lecture. And I'm also very grateful for the THE, who are our co-host, Association of Indian Universities. I'm also very grateful to the center, which is headed by Mohan. I'm also thankful for all the panel speakers, Tarun Giridhar, Atul Khosla, Ritika Chanda, Gaurav Shri Ganesh, Professor Vaslin, Professor Sudarshan, Matthew Johnson, Moli Shri, Raki Malik. I think, we should give a round of applause to all the panel speakers. I'm very grateful to Duncan, who gave a beautiful presentation in the afternoon, who engaged the audience. I think that session was also very interesting, very useful. I would really want to thank Phil Beatty for coming in the morning and Duncan for being here. So we should give a round of applause to Duncan. I have to say that this entire conference was conceptualized by my Vice Chancellor. He always makes us do things. I head the Office of Ranking, and I really liked the idea when he said that we should do this. I really want to keep telling that please keep pushing us, Professor Raj, and whatever you say, whatever you do, I think it conceptualizes into great ideas. I really want to take this opportunity in thanking Professor Dr. C Raj Kumar for absolutely conceptualizing this from end to end. Dean Mohan, I cannot thank him enough, for wonderfully moderating the session. And also, when he was moderating, I was thinking he's speaking and moderating. So thank you, Mohan, for your wonderful discussions. A lot of people have put effort for this conference. I really want to thank from the Office of Vice Chancellor, Neha Gupta, Ankit, they all worked really hard. I also want to thank my own office, Office of Academic Governance, Mayank, Riddhima, Sneha, Anandika, so they all worked very hard. I would want to take this opportunity in inviting Raj to felicitate our guest, Dr. Chauhan. These students, I am really grateful to you. I have to mention, I have served this university, but I've not seen wonderful students. You're absolutely wonderful, and I look forward to having you in more events. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Avirup Bose, for bringing them here and agreeing to. I think they had no class today, so I hope it was useful. Duncan is here. Thank you, Duncan, as well. Thank you.